Hey everybody, it's me, Kat, back with the final of the raw journals, and this one is pretty short, and then all we have left is stings, and that one should be pretty fun. I'm gonna break it down into manageable pieces instead of doing it as one really long video. But with all that being said, let's just get on with it, shall we? So this is September of 2020, and then after this, because like I said before, the census work ended up being completed by like kind of like around Halloween, first week of November, and then after that, it was just into the holiday season and me working on getting out of there and looking for places and doing the things. So I might either all of that stuff is in Stings, or I might have to just do one freestyle video just to actually like bring everything to a close of how I ended up getting out of there and then the transition to where I moved. So it's quite early in the morning, and yeah. Anyway, all right. September 7th, Labor Day, and I'm off. Finally got through to someone at Capital One to help me verify my identity, update my address and phone number so I can get my card. I made the mistake the other night of being on the phone with them while I was cooking dinner, so he became privy to this problem in my life, which now means he thinks it's his business. He asked if that was about my phone, and so I leveled with him about it being that I still haven't received a credit card in the mail, and that I also have not been able to get my bill from Hawaiian Tel because I signed up for paperless billing, but their invoices don't download. Today, after I got off the phone with Capital One, I had to tell him that I am expecting a FedEx package in 2 to 3 days, which led to him thinking it would correspond with when he goes to pay his phone bill, which then led to him telling me that now you need to speak to Hawaiian Tel about getting your phone bill. Meanwhile, the bill for the internet, which technically is attached to a home phone because it's DSL. Anyway, I looked at him in my best soft concern face and very directly said, "It's my bill, right?" "Yeah, the bill for the internet that you said you never received." He looks at me as though he believes he is jogging my memory. Yes, I know. It's my bill. And yes, I have that taken care of. So when he came and asked me if I would help him with it, meaning like, hey, now that you're working, can you pay the internet bill or whatever? I told him that the only way that I would do it is if it was transferred to being in my name, which really weirded me out that they even let me do that because it's I don't know. I mean, it's like that. Like technically speaking, it's like I don't even live there, right? Like it was kind of strange. But anyway, but yeah, they just transferred it to my name and grandfathered over the price that he was paying and all of that jazz, and I took over the bill entirely. So in this situation, the problem was like he wasn't understanding that the only reason like I could pay the bill because it would tell you, if you want to, hey, pay your invoice, it's $35 or whatever, but there wasn't a way for me to actually download the bit, like it wasn't working. So I had to call them to just switch to paper billing or whatever so that I could have copies of the bill and then I have it like coming in the mail with my name being on the bill and on this address. So the funny thing about that was like, and I had actually kept those, and it's like I had like a paper trail of the fact that this was the situation because it's like at the end of the day, I can't be the one who's financially abusing him if in the course of living with him as his medical assistant, I've actually taken over a utility bill and had it put in my name. I'm not the one who's committing any kind of financial abuse. He is. Right? Right? It's like you hired someone to be your medical assistant, and the only thing that you can afford to give them in exchange for this is living with you, right? That's being very on the nose. But then as soon as this person gets a job outside the home and has a little bit of income, you decide to like twist their arm into just helping you pay the bills. Um, this might be in here somewhere, but there was so what happened was there was a morning and day, one of these days that I think I was off, maybe it doesn't matter. But like I was sitting there and he asked me, he's like, so like with all this overtime that you've been working, so I would leave to get there at like 6:30 in the morning. So meaning I would leave at like 6 a.m. to start at 6:30 and I would be there all day until the office closed at 9 o'clock, like most days of the week. And so he would ask, like, hey, so like now that you're working all of these hours, like you're getting paid overtime, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. And he's like, He's like, well, since like you're making all this time, like baby, like now you can like help me out paying the bills for a change. And it was just like, oh, he really thinks that we're just like friends for like he really doesn't have, he's completely lost the plot, basically, right? That it was like that now that I actually have, like he actually thinks I like it here. So I'll tell you right now, before like even way before the pandemic, there was a point that I woke up one day and realized I hadn't left the apartment in like 5 months. And it was like just because I didn't have a reason to go anywhere, and that even if I did or tried to feign that I had somewhere to go, like he would be so in my business about it or insisting on just coming along or like what, right? It's like that it wasn't worth it, right? It wasn't worth it. There was no way that I could have just told him, like, dude, I just need to get out of the house. I'm just gonna go ride the bus for a few hours and like joyride and see some scenery and smell the beach and then turn around and come back. Like he'd just be like, why do you like why? You know what I'm saying? And it's just it would be and then he'd be all suspicious that I was actually like up to something. Right. So it's like that there was no escape from this. Right. It was just, it there was no remedy in the moment. It was just putting like with this person who's just convinced himself that I actually like him and that I'm his best friend and like all this stuff. And it's like there was nothing to even really base like coming up with that impression, right? Like it's like remember how we met and everything to this. Like he just acted like this from the jump. And and yeah. So anyway, back to this. He's not picking up on the body language that would indicate to most people that they are stepping on toes. He's not phrasing it as someone simply reminding someone or gingerly asking if they got something done they wanted to do. He matter of factly told me what to do next in my life. Right? Like he's like, now you should go sit down at your desk and call Hawaiian Tel and get this bill situation straightened out. The same man that when I first moved in had the bill situation so fucked up that it cost me hundreds of dollars to keep his internet on in the first place. But yeah, like I'm the one that needs somebody like you telling me what to do, right? I mean, just completely out of touch, completely fucking out of touch with reality. Major issue. It's none of your business, right? He came over to my desk and started talking about the second stimulus check and said that they were either going to send $2,000 once or $1,200 for August and then again in September, and that he'd rather give the $1,200 twice because that's $2,400 and that's more than 2,000. I remember this. Yes, I'm serious. Right? Like, I'm fucking dead ass. He thought this was an interesting conversation. The real issue with this is that according to anything I knew of, excuse me, to anything I knew of or could find online from reputable sources, not goddamn Facebook, was that there was likely going to be another $1,200 stimulus sent with a total of $2,400 going to married couples. Nowhere did it say anything about a single check for 2 grand, nor did it say anything about two $1,200 checks in separate months. Now, he may have been reading this from some of his dumbass friends or a hokum source online, but I suspect that he had unwittingly conflated the idea of two checks as $2,400 as the combination of my check with his. September 14th, my day off. The neighbor across the hall passed away. He mentioned that he wondered why his door had been shut for 2 days. Jack usually had his door open from the time he got up in the morning until the time he went up to bed at night. So you mean to tell me that you're the kind of person who noticed a change in behavior like that and someone you know had cancer like for years, like he was sick, like it was, there was a day, I don't think this is in here, and this is actually kind of sad. So just like as a preface, like I'm not making it just as a story, right? He had misunderstood what somebody said one day and had thought that he had died, the neighbor across the hall. And he told me, and like he was crying, like he was upset about it. So like I said to you, it's like he's not a psychopath. He's not right. He's not that far gone. He's just a little, you know, wildly out there about himself. But anyway, um, and it was kind of because he was really like down the rabbit hole of sadness over this before someone was finally able to get him to understand. I think someone had mentioned that he just had gone to the doctor for the day or like, or that he had ended up being admitted to the hospital and somehow he got it confused that he had passed away. And it took like half a day and like three different people like shaking him to get him to understand that Jack wasn't dead. Right? It's like because he just won't listen. Right? When he gets something in his head, he just he stops paying attention and he gets so focused on what he already believes that it's nearly impossible to get him to focus and pay attention to the actual information. Right? So anyway, but like so this time though, he had actually passed away. And someone you know had cancer and is someone you've already thought had passed away once before. That incident is described in a journal entry from that day that I either just don't have anymore or was just making shit up. I don't know. And didn't try to find out what was going on. Or you're the kind of person who says something like that off the cuff to make yourself appear relevant to the situation. Bruh, you're relevant for the first reason. I bet if you didn't go downstairs in the morning and no one checked in on you from downstairs to see if you're okay, you give them hell even though everyone knows that I am here. Right. So like every morning he would go downstairs. It's like if he didn't do that for like 3 days, he'd be livid if people weren't banging down his door to make sure that he was still alive, even though they know he has live-in hell. September 16th. Jesus fucking Christ. So I'm at work and it's about 4:45 and up until everything has been going good. Great, really. My zone is about to close out tonight. The injunction decision comes in tomorrow. Maybe will be extended. I have thousands of dollars in the bank, looking forward to a few more, and my zone is about to close. Did I mention my zone is about to close? We are about to be the first zone in the state to finish, and the taste, not just the smell, of victory is on my tongue. My manager, who sits next to me, gets up to go who knows where. A few minutes later, I start to hear this ringtone that I don't recognize. Between the NARFU phones and office phones, I don't even remember what that stands for anymore. Um, between NARFU phones and office phones and text messages and emails and Skypes, there is a cacophony of sounds throughout the day, but this one is loud and different. After it rings a full round for the second time, I start to sing. Justin, pick up your phone because your ringtone is really irritating. Oh my God. So, hey, it's your birthday. So you ain't gotta pick up your phone. Have you ever seen that Happy Death Day, the fucking ringtone from Happy Death Day? Oh my God. After the third or fourth time his phone rang, it finally stops, and a few minutes later he comes back to his desk. I don't remember the next few moments of events, but they culminate with me singing my little ditty, and he realizes that his personal phone has been ringing. He returns the call and says, "What? Okay, I'm leaving right now." Oh, Justin was supposed to be my manager's name. Because I changed the names of people, so I actually had no idea who the fuck Justin was. But my manager, right? Like, dude, like your fucking personal phone is blowing up, and your ringtone is really irritating. Yeah. Anyway, so he's like, "What? Okay, I'm leaving right now." He starts packing up his stuff in a hurry-ish, and once he's finished and about to run out the door, he looks at me and my colleague and says, "You guys need to pack up your stuff and leave right now. I got a positive result." So this whole like a handful of days, like our manager fully had COVID and was just chilling like 4 feet away, everything. I mean, we did our social distancing. He was probably 6 feet away from the difference in like where the desk seats were and stuff. But I mean, it's not like when we were working on stuff, we weren't like passing things back and forth and like getting up in each other's spaces and shit. So we nonchalantly finish up what we're doing. I leave at 5:30 instead of 6. When I get home early, I tell him what happened and about the arrangements surrounding the next day. I also tell him because every time somebody in the office tested positive for COVID, the next day a cleaning crew would come in and like completely sanitize the place. So like nobody worked the following day. But that's why when he quietly told us you need to kind of like quietly pack up your stuff and leave because if I'm positive, you guys might have it too. And they wanted to keep because it's kind of like a HIPAA issue and stuff too. So they wanted to keep who tested positive for COVID quiet, even though like we'll eventually figure it out because we don't hate each other enough to not talk in the office. You know what I'm saying? So, but as far as like the business side of it went, they were being responsible about keeping things quiet in that way, right? So anyway, so that's the deal. So like the following day, nobody's going to go in because like that day is going to be hey, somebody tested positive for COVID today, so tomorrow everybody's off because we've got to clean and sterilize the office. So when I get home early, I tell him what happened about the arrangements surrounding the next day. I also tell him about the operation next week to count the unsheltered population overnight, and then I'll be working from 6 p.m. Wednesday to 6 a.m. Thursday. And he looks and acts very upset. When I was explaining the operation, he was like, "Oh no, you're not doing that." But I reassured him that I'll be working in the office, not in the field. But it's just sad that it's like that this man thinks that he can tell me, like, "Oh no, you're not doing that. Like, you're not going to go," because people would have to go to like where the known homeless encampments are in the middle of the night and just count people, right? So that's when he's like, "Oh no, you're not doing that." Like, who in the fuck do you think you are? Do right? It's like you're. I don't know why but it's like because of the nature of the situation where he's technically like my full-time, but like this goes back to the stuff that was happening with Safeway, right? Where it's like he thinks though that because he is this client of mine as his medical assistant, that I'm living with him in exchange for doing this job, that it gave him an authority, that it only gave him this authority if I was actually that put off by the idea of like not having somewhere to live. So like he can't threaten my bosses to not schedule me to do certain things. What he's actually doing in these moments or whatever is basically pressuring me to quit. But he's the one that's always wanting me to get these jobs in the first place. Right. So it's like he's all over the fucking map. Um, oh no, you're not doing that. But I reassured him that I'll be working in the office, not in the field, and that it's just one night, and he calmed down. This whole scenario was so problematic, though. He thought he could tell me what to do, like I wouldn't understand when I need to lie to him to get what I need or want, and that he's this been out of shape over spending one night alone. Right. So it's like, even if I were going to have to be out in the field working that night, I would still have just lied to him and told him I'm going to be working in the office. I'm not going to be one of the people wandering around, like actually doing the work in the field. So they're, um, so yeah. So like I said, right, that it's like if he was going to be this bent out of shape, I'd just lie to him. So like, what's the point in thinking that you can tell me what to do? There was the thing going back to the story I told before about him asking me about like with all the overtime that you can pay some of my bills now and what all this stuff. He had asked at one point like what I was getting paid, and what kind of money I make. And at that point, like, because I knew that at this point I was like comfortable that I could tell him to basically go screw, and I would have been fine. That just looked him dead in the eye and said like, it's literally none of your business. Right. And it's like, which is kind of this funny juxtaposition because I know that I've mentioned several times before that he was always very like, you need to remain hush hush about any money that you make. So, like, there used to be, because we used to have actual like elections with polling places and all that, but then they changed it to everything is vote by mail except for two main voting spots in downtown Honolulu and then in downtown Kapolei. And but back when they used to have the open polling places in all the different precincts, I would volunteer and work the call center for the elections. I think I mentioned this in an earlier journal, but they paid an $85 stipend per election. So like for the primary and then for the general. So like each time you do basically the exact same thing twice. Anyway, $85 each time. And like one day, like my check came and he was just like, "Oh my God, like keep your voice down. Like don't let anyone know you have that." And it's like, what the hell's going to happen if a neighbor finds out I have $80? Like what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Right? It was super weird. So anyway, it was like on the one hand, he's always like, you need to keep quiet about like it's like you get in my face to go work at Safeway because if people see that I have a job, then they won't think that I live here and they'll think I have my own place and then they won't be suspicious. Then you work overtime doing your dumb shit in order to try to get me fired from Safeway. Then you actually purposefully block me from being able to start working at Macy's. Now you bring, because he's the one who brought home the pamphlet about applying to work at the census and handed it to me and was like, you should apply for this. I was like, okay, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So, like, then you bring me the pamphlet and tell me that I should apply for a job with the census. Then I start working the job with the census, but I'm working all of these hours, which you then don't like. But then you want to find out how much money I'm making and then tell me that maybe I should just pay all of your bills for a change, which is kind of this odd, like, well, if you're working so much and you're not even here, then why am I compensating you for your services? But it's like you're already wildly fucking behind based on what I should be properly compensated for this shit. So it's like you see how, and he was just one of these people all around. I know I've mentioned this before. He's all about whatever state of affairs in the world benefits him the most, regardless of how inconsistent it makes him from one day to the next. Right? These are symptoms of mental illness, y'all. It's like that's kind of like the lack of object permanence. Right? It was all cool me working at the census when I was only working 30 hours a week and making just enough money to like buy myself cute shit that I want, right? When I'm like buying myself makeup and like da 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 da. But then as soon as he starts realizing I'm working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then I'm probably making a buttload of money, now all of a sudden it's like you should pay my bills, right? It's always and it's like can and it's like at the end of the day, it's been 5 years that you've had somebody sharing your studio apartment living space with you. You're not tired of this shit yet. Right. And I feel like normal people will resonate with that. Like this whole idea that it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like if you need a place to stay for a couple weeks or a month or so or whatever while you get back on your feet or like get your first few paychecks or something, something, whatever. But this whole situation was really strange. Like I don't understand why he didn't want to be able to like enjoy his privacy and have the place to himself and stuff like that. It was just very strange. I feel like it's strange in the same way I think it's strange that 80-year-old people are still running for Congress. To be like, because I was at that age, like, don't y'all just want to retire? Like, don't you just want to go fucking take a nap? Like, bro fell down the stairs at the Senate or whatever the other day. Mitch McConnell and shit. Like, bro, like, y'all gonna be fucking like, they're gonna come around to your turn to vote and you're gonna be dead at your desk in the fucking chamber. Like, why do these 80-year-old people want to still be doing this? Like, I don't understand. I'd want to be on my yacht in the Seychelles. Why in the hell are they so committed to this? Which is what starts to make me think, like, what kind of weird, shady deals did they get themselves into back in the day? Like, think about, like, between all the weird, shady wars, like Vietnam, and then there, and the whatnots, and like this, that, like, what kind of, who are they beholden to? Right. And I think sometimes it's like, this is why I don't necessarily disapprove of Doge, because I think there's a lot of people that also have that intuition of it's not just like a mismanagement of funds, like, hey, we sent this $1 million grant for this research to this university, but when we asked them to hand us the receipts of how they spent the $1 million, they can only account for 820,000 of it, right? Or whatever. It's not just that. It's what actually is are where some of these things that sound like such strange things for us to be spending our money on, right? The was it oh the one like from yesterday that stood out to me was the whole like the money to have Sesame Street production in, was it Iraq or Saudi Arabia, one of the two. And there's like that the justification for it is like because it's a show that teaches values. But and it's like, okay, yeah, I mean that it is what it is, but like why are we giving all of this money for that? Like just I don't know. It would just seem kind of strange, right? That I don't think that's what that's for. Somebody somewhere along the way made some back alley deal for some fucking weapons or some shit with somebody that they're still secretly trying to pay off, and that's how they're doing it, right? It's in scare quotes, right? Money to Iraq to produce their own version of Sesame Street. That's not what the fuck that means. That's just the code name for like Operation Pay Off the Black Market Gun Lords. Like there's got to be. All right. Anyway, so weird conspiracy theories about the government aside. That's what, like I said, it's like some of this stuff. I don't think that's actually what that stuff means either. But whatever. Jumping ship on him is going to be oh so very very sweet, and so very very sweet. It's Mike Hartman. And I think that this proves my point very well. He just simply does not and will not understand that he has no skin in the game of my life. I don't give a shit about him, and I never have. He's a delusional freak who followed me onto the bus one night and happened to run into me again a couple of times. Did I use him, or did he insist on me doing so? The latter is true, no matter what you may think of me. Right? So, like what I was saying before about like the whole like the financial abuse situation and the having the bill in my name and like all of this stuff. Like, why would I take on the responsibility of having one of his only utility bill in my name and be the person who's on my computer was signing in and paying the bill, right? Like that if I'm abusing him in this situation, how? Right? And like I said to like that the after 5 years of being up in this person's like what would I have to have on this person who's probably done like next to nothing in their life, right? Like if I were going to do this and strong arm some like weak older person into letting me live with them and taking advantage of them, it's not going to be the dude living in public housing with an abysmal IQ who's constantly like up my ass. Right? Why, if I were into the whole being a con artist kind of situation, I'm intelligent enough. I could have just done this to somebody with like actual space and comfort. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have stayed in the situation like it's weird. Like I said, it's like I think if anything, somebody else was manipulating him and I had no idea what was going on. Like we're both victims of whoever was doing this. But to what end, who fucking knows? Unless it's this, like they just want somebody to candidly speak about spending copious amounts of time with someone who wasn't psychologically with it. I don't, but it's like that to fuck somebody over as much as I've been fucked over and just being in the dark and shit, like I don't think this is important enough. Right? So it's kind of like going back to like government conspiracy theory shit, right? Then it's like if that's what this is, like I don't understand why this would be considered something to be expending resources on. It seems a little petty and boring, right? When I came home from work slash Safeway at about 5 p.m. today, there were a lot of people outside, including Judy and Margaret. I made a comment about how popular it was at the moment, and Judy told me that he, my other half, was just downstairs and mentioned that he wondered where I was at. Huh? I came upstairs, unloaded my stuff, dinner for that night, not the goddamn fried chicken I knew he bought on $5 Friday, and my lunch for the next day, some garlic hummus and plain Stacy's pita chips and a bottle of Smirnoff Zero Sugar Infusion Strawberry Rose Vodka that I snuck off to the bathroom with, and everything was normal as it gets. He mentioned that he had just been downstairs because Judy called to ask if he wanted any pizza. He didn't take any, but he had been downstairs. Oh, okay, now I left out this detail. When I came back, the reason that everybody was outside and chilling was because somebody had bought Pizza Hut for everybody and was just kind of sitting out there and handing out slices of pizza or some shit. Yeah, so at about 7 p.m., he changes into his lounge clothes as we're counting down the minutes until dinner is done in the oven. He sat down on his bed slash futon next to me and says, "Yeah, I didn't expect you home so early." I rebut, "Really? Because when I came back, Judy told me that you had just been downstairs wondering where I was at." He got up chuckling and said, "Yeah, nobody could figure out where Judy got the pizza from." And he went back to his desk. And so that's the end on the journals. And I feel that's an interesting cap off, right? Where that it's like, huh, really? Because your little think they're your friends downstairs already sold you out on that. Oh, I didn't think you'd be home so early, bitch. You were already expecting me. So, yeah, not sure what that had to do with who bought the pizza, but it is what it is. But yeah, all right. So that's maybe a good place to stop. Like I said, I don't remember exactly what's in Stings. So, oh, yeah, excuse me. I might actually, just because I have a little bit of time still to kill. So here's how I ended up leaving. So I had all of my money that I'd made from the census saved up, stored, whatever. And in order to be able to go look at apartments and places, I just started going to the doctor. So after the holidays, so like I said, like by the time the census was over, then it was like Thanksgiving, and then it was Christmas season. And after all of that and the new year rolled around, I started going to the eye doctor and then regular doctor. You just, oh, I'm going to do all my checkups now and all this, yada, 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 yada. And I was doing that, but then on my way back to the apartment or whatever, I would like go and look at places, et cetera, et cetera. And I found one that I liked that was relatively close around and and stuff. And so I kind of told them what the situation was. Dude, like mopeds are so fucking loud. I don't know how people ride around on basically like a souped up lawnmower. So I just don't understand it. All right, anyway. Um, so, and I told them that I was basically going to have to vacate, like my only window of opportunity was going to be getting like leaving while he goes to pay his phone bill. It's like the only consistent errand that he ever does where when he says he's leaving, he basically does actually leave and is gone for about an hour and a half. So I signed the lease on March 5th of 2021, but with them knowing and then giving me the keys and all that jazz, that whatever time on Monday the 8th that he actually left to go pay his phone bill was going to be when I'd be able to make my break for it. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. It's like, so they had me sign the lease on Friday so that I'd have my keys just in case he wanted to get up and do this already at like 7 or 8 in the morning and they weren't even open yet. Um, Over in Kailua, which is like his quote unquote hometown area and that he's familiar with, next to the Ulta is the AT&T store, and across the street from that is the Target. And so I'd already a few times had ordered stuff for pickup at Target. Like, see how I had to kind of ease into this. So like back in then the November, December holiday season, I would place orders for pickup at Target and have him go to Target to pick them up when he went to pay his phone bill. There is no Ulta in Honolulu, but I had been doing morning get ready with me little makeup things, especially during like when COVID popped off on Facebook and had gotten back into doing makeup and things. So when I asked him if he would be willing to go to Kailua to pay his phone bill and pick up things for me from the Target and from the Ulta next door, he was, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Da, 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 da. And that's how I was able to make my break for it. Of course, I let the screen go to sleep. Of course I did, because why not? So over the previous 6 months, I had like slowly been like packing up my stuff and organizing it into manageable, like grab and run situations. So like like all the big like plastic tubs that people use for storage and stuff like that. I had a big suitcase. Um, and whatnot. And so I was making sure like all of the stuff that I definitely wanted to take with me was carefully cleaned. In fact, because I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but motherfucker had a raging bed bug infestation that I had to deal with mitigating, cleaning, constantly trying to get, because it's the whole building. Right. So like remember when I said before that it's strange though that like these some of these buildings that are actually like government housing and stuff like that. But what ends up happening, I think, is that they get to a point where they're so run down, like something like, oh my God, the bed bug infestation is like throughout the entire building. And in order to actually do something about it, we would have to just tear the building down, or you can take over it as the government, like basically condemn the building. And so, like, that's how you do the whole eminent domain stuff and whatever. The government basically seizes the property from whoever actually owned it, and then they just turn it into government housing, and the people who live there have to just deal with it because they're only paying $250 a month anyway, right? Um, this will come into play when I start talking about the apartment that I ended up moving into, right? Um, but they didn't have bed bugs. But in order to make sure that I wasn't taking anything with me, I was like cleaning everything out, wiping everything down, putting it into Ziploc bags, and then packing it away in these containers. So that on that day when he left to go pay his phone bill, I was able to just, I called a taxi. I actually think I had arranged or I contacted the taxi company the day before or like at some point prior, and told them that this was going to be happening on the 8th. I said, like, I just don't know what time it is, but I'm going to need a van, whatever, blah, 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 whatever. And so I called for my taxi and I just rushed, got everything out. I put the Dear John letter on his desk with the key for the building taped to it that then I also traced around with a Sharpie pen and took pictures of and videotaped on my way out the door. And the first thing that I then went and did was go to the post office and I sent the key to the apartment door because I wasn't going to leave his door unlocked, right? I'm not a total asshole. So the key to the apartment itself I mailed back to him certified mail. And then I took a picture of the certified mail slip and sent him the photo and the text message that said, the key to the apartment is in this certified letter. If you don't go pick it up and it gets returned to me. Okay, I did it again, of course, but I think that was basically the end of the story anyway. I mean that was basically that's all she wrote. I had to get him to leave town to do this errand to be going far enough away because it's probably like 30 minutes there and back on the bus and by the time he's there and does all of the stuff running around um, I knew I'd given myself at least like an hour and a half to 2 hour window. I think I was probably out and done in like 45 minutes to an hour. Because I think things like I wanted my rug, like so the rug that I bought for myself was like a nice, nice-ish, and whatever. But from Target, there was like a 5x7 rug that was close to $100. And so and of course, and it was like almost new because I just gotten it around Christmas. It was one of the things that I ordered from Target for pickup to send him to go get for me as part of all of this setup. So like I had to move my whole desk to get my rug out from under it and yada yada yada. So but yeah, I managed to get out with all my stuff, got to my new apartment, had the cab take me to Target to buy some things and whatever, and tipped him like 150 bucks. And it was funny because he was really aggravated throughout the whole process of this, kind of. And I kept telling him, like, it's like, first of all, it's like the meter's running, so what do you care? But then after I had everything moved into my apartment, well, he just like stood outside chilling, smoking a cigarette, right? Unload the van and take it up to my place and then had him take me to Target when he dropped me off at Target. And I tried to tip him this money. He's like, no, no, it's too much, it's too much. And I'm like, but it's not though, because like it's not your job to be like someone's moving truck or whatever. He's like, oh no, no. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm just like, yeah, I'm absolutely sure. I had already planned on doing that, but it's like whatever the metered fare is plus a tip of $150. So I was like, and I know from driving taxi and rideshare myself that by the time he was done helping me, his day was done. That was probably enough for him to have met his money. It's like that day he actually probably was either able to just call it quits early or get a little tiny bit ahead, whatever. But anywho, yeah, so that's the story of how I ended up being able to escape. And then almost immediately, like the phone calls and then the weird voicemails and the emails and bugging Christine at work. And now he's trying to be my Facebook friend, sending me DMs, basically just repeating himself, repeating himself, repeating himself, repeating himself and about like you didn't even let me say goodbye and like there's still stuff here that belongs to you if you want to come back and get the rest of it and like I'm like I don't have any like no I'm not going to do that. So finally though I respond to him and I just say everything I had to say to you was in the resignation letter because I literally put in writing I don't want any of the stuff that's been left behind. Like I'm not coming back. I'm not saying it. Like I'm out of here. Like I'm done. I literally I wrote it like as a formal letter of resignation. Like that I hereby resign from my position of being the medical assistant live-in caregiver. Here's the key. The other key is in certified mail. Here's proof that I've taken all of your payment cards off of my DoorDash account. I don't want any of this stuff. I'm I'm done and I'm out. I forgot one of the here's a big story. This is kind of like out of left field, right? As I was thinking that maybe I was finally done as I've been rambling on about this for another 10 minutes. But I mentioned the bed bug situation. So he had this container of diatomaceous earth, and he asked if I would want some of it like around my bed or in my bed, whatever. And I said no, because I just kept the area like clean. Like I'd put the bed up and clean underneath it and like all of this kind of stuff. And I told him no. This motherfucker, right? So this is while I was still working for the census, but this was around this August, September, October timeframe. I started waking up in the mornings and I'd have like a bloody nose and my skin was really dry and my eyes were really dry and kind of and irritated and whatnot, and I couldn't figure out like what the hell was going on. This motherfucker had taken the sheet off of my bed and covered the bed with this diatomaceous earth and then put the sheet back on. So at night, I was literally just breathing this in. So if you're not familiar with what it is, it's basically just ground up seashells and stuff, and it's actually incredibly drying. And it's like this is how it works to kill things, is basically like it soaks up all of the moisture, and they just like shrivel up, right, and die. And so my bloody noses, because it's also like little sharp shards of stuff. So my bloody noses and my dry skin and my irritated eyes were because every night when I was asleep, I was rolling around in a sheet on top of a pile of diatomaceous earth. I was so livid, I was shaking, and I was literally about to beat the shit out of him when he came back upstairs when I discovered this. Because he had asked if I wanted him to use it. I told him no. He said, "Are you sure?" I said no. And I knew because I knew that like this, you can't just put that in your bed. And he did it anyway because he was like this. And it's like he'd get this stuff in his head and it didn't matter if you said no. If he thought it was the good thing to do, he'd just do it anyway. And that was my really, truly last fucking straw, that I actually hoped that when he arrived back at the apartment and walked in and realized that I had bounced, that the shock of it would have caused him to drop dead. That's actually what the goal was. Um, and I know that this sound like it's a horrible thing to say, but I legitimately had hoped that this shit would have just killed him and he would have just been off the earth and I wouldn't have had to worry about like running into him somewhere or anything like that. You know what I mean? It's like hopefully this is just, but and it didn't. It was like, and he was because that, but yeah, I just unfathomable bullshit. I like now like thinking back to that moment, it's like it's pissing me off all over again. Right? That it just I can't this guy this it just I don't know. I don't know. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like him. I know that this it's like I was mentioning before, like as the baby boomer generation gets older, um, this might actually be a more widespread problem than people think it is. That like a lot of these like a lot of undiagnosed mental illnesses that people have just put up with for so long, thinking like that's just, crazy Aunt Karen, like that's just, loopy Uncle Greg, right? And people have just kind of like, yeah, she never was. What's that SNL skit with the sisters? And then it gets to the last one and she's like, "Ah, Jenny," right? Or whatever, like and the family just kind of embraced it a little bit and nobody really addressed it. It's the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. Well, when you're gonna need somebody taking care of these people in their old age, you're gonna have to be prepared to talk about it because people aren't going to just live with loopy Aunt Greg. Aunt Greg. With loopy Uncle Greg. Or, huh? Oh, love you too. Oh, that was fun. I don't know. Either home visit, I don't know. But it was fun. I don't think I've ever seen her before. It was interesting. But yeah, who knows? Or people walking back and forth, just being like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm just going to sit here and just record my shit. talk about the stuff that it's like. And that's it, hey, take it as that little sign from the universe that this is maybe it's a more admirable project than I feel like it is because I'm too close to the suffering of it all, but whatever. Anyway, it was fun. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good place to call it quits for this one. And next is going to be Sting. I think that that's the whole story, basically, from start to finish, and all the crazy in the middle. Excited dogs. It was always fun. Anyway, yeah, so I think that's a good place to stop. I need coffee and battery power. I need electricity, energy in all its forms. All right, so well, they said, oh my God, it's been like 18 minutes since I was going to end this. It's kind of bittersweet thinking of like, holy cow, I'm like done with this. I just started a few weeks. This is one of those, oh my gosh, it feels like it's going to be such a daunting task and I'm never going to be able to get this finished. And now it's like, that didn't really take much time at all. So, all right, next up then is going to be stings. And oh, that should be fun. I think what I want to do for stings, I'm just going to put this out here in the universe since I'm still here. Um, what I've kind of decided I want to do is I'm going to break it down into manageable, like time-wise, like pieces so that each of the videos is only about 15 to 20 minutes long. And I am going to hold I'm going to just read them and I will save doing any kind of commentary for while I'm playing spades and listening back to it. And I'm going to then start with stings when I start doing the spades stuff so that and then I'll start then back over from the beginning of the other stuff. So I think that'll be kind of a fun way to kind of like it's like doing a U-turn at the end of the road and then coming back. But like I said, I'll start at the beginning again after I've done the stings with the YouTube spades. So it's kind of it's kind of funny because then that just means that by the time you get to the end of the spades, the phase two version, this is where we're going to be at to bring this all to a close, and then I'll decide whether or not I want to move on to something else or continue continue. Oh, I know. I guess I got to tell the story of the landlord, huh? Oh well. Anyway, until next time. Bye.